Welcome back to Talking Shop with ShopSabre. In this podcast, we like to tackle the CNC industry specifically and really talk a little bit about business in general. Hopefully you'll find some entertainment throughout it and hopefully some education. But the next episode starts right now. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Talking Shop. I am your host, Brandon Bombardo, and I am here with Nick Peters.
What's going on, man?
Living the dream today.
Living the dream, huh?
Yeah, I'm living the dream, but hopefully everybody else listening is living the dream too, because obviously we're here to entertain you, keep ourselves entertained, need to kill a little time today, and then obviously talk a little bit about CNC and business, do the whole deal, and jump into it. So that sound like a fun day to you?
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, let's waste some time. Let's talk about some current events. Then we'll jump into our customer questions and comments today. We got 3 of them. And then we got an audience question followed up by our topic, which is going to be called strategic moves. I'm pretty excited about that topic today. And then from there, it's kind of a longer topic today, to be honest.
It's like 14 pages.
It's not 14 pages. Go back to school.
I just had to cut down 3 trees to print all this.
Probably true. And then we have our Internet's Broken, which is a good segment today. I'm excited about that. We haven't done one in a few weeks. We forgot to do it last week. I had one and I forgot about it. So
way to go.
Oops. And then motivational quote of the week followed up by our final thoughts. So jumping into it, current events. It's voting day.
It is voting day.
Well, it was voting day when you've heard this. Voting day is gone.
Yeah.
I voted. Nick, did you vote?
Not until after work.
So by the time people have heard this, you've voted.
When we're done with this, I might just leave for 2 hours and go vote and come back.
Fair enough. Get it done.
I'm not going to do that.
Go exercise your right.
That's a lot of wasted driving back and forth.
You're right, it is. But you know what? I'm a firm believer in democracy, and you should have the right to go vote. And that means if you need to leave work to go do it, I am okay with it.
I'd never take advantage of you that way.
And I appreciate that. I actually appreciate a lot of our employees thinking that way because, as you know, I'm not one to ever stop somebody from being able to exercise their rights.
Early?
Well, leave early. Yes, I've never stopped anybody from leaving early. But no, yeah, I'm excited about the fact that voting in general, like obviously when I'm recording this, I don't know the outcome, but I'm excited about the fact that we as Americans, okay, as a society, put political sides aside, right?
Yep.
We as Americans have a unique opportunity to go out and have our voices quote unquote heard, right?
Sure.
I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that don't believe that it's truly heard, and I have my own opinions, and I'm not getting into that, but I think it is great that we live in a nation where we have this opportunity and this freedom.
Right, for sure.
And I think that says something. For me, I've always, I think since I was younger, been into the political side of like understanding the government and, and just trying to like learn as much about that. And sometimes it's not a good thing to be into that because it really can piss you off sometimes.
Right.
But I think you'll learn in life that politics play a role in almost everything, specifically youth hockey. I can tell you a lot about that if you got it. How long do you got? We'll start a separate episode. Yeah, we'll call it an episode called Who's Got Time for That?
Ain't no one got time
Ain't
for that.
nobody got time for that. But yeah, politics and, youth sports and, politics in your career and politics in the world. It's unfortunately a part of the world. And so, again, voting to me, like it's one of the opportunities where you get to get out and at least state your opinion.
Yep.
So get out and vote. If you didn't get out and vote, well, I wish you would have. But yeah, that's the current event that comes to mind for me. Any current events that come to mind for you, Nick?
The Vikings won this week, finally.
Let's go.
It
wasn't pretty.
No. Hey, a win
that first half was hard to watch.
I didn't watch the second half, I'll be honest with you.
You watched the hardest half and then didn't watch it?
Bed. No, I'm like, this sucks. I'm going to bed.
It was horrible. By halftime, it was 0-0, which I don't remember seeing a 0-0 football game at halftime in a long time. It's a long time since I've seen that. Like at any football. Like
Right.
Football has become really about like scoring. Like you haven't seen like defensive struggles. Like, They've made it so easy to move the ball nowadays.
They kind of went up and down the field at will and then just decided to drop the ball on the ground like the other team had.
Right. It was just crazy. But yeah, Vikings got the dub. 21-3, 6. What was it?
13.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was 21-13, but 6 of it came on a fumble by our own team into the end zone.
After he got clubbed in the face by a man.
After he got punched.
God. 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. They're just trying to take Sam out.
But whatever, just play better and the refs.
Yeah, play better and the ref don't matter, right?
Me and Drew also went to a really cool golf place this weekend.
I saw that.
Dude.
So tell me about it.
Okay, so Topgolf. You obviously know what Topgolf is.
Yes.
Super cool. They like scan your ball and
Yeah, love
kinda knows who's
Topgolf. My
hitting
kids think it's the greatest thing ever.
It's the same type of thing, but it's mini golf. And they have 4 different courses. And it's the same thing. They give you a ball that's scanned to your name. And it's got all these different obstacles and ways to earn bonus points, lose points.
Really?
Yeah, there's even some with like trivia. You get bonus points if you putt the ball through the right trivia answer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, super awesome.
So, like, obviously, it's not always the shortest distance to the hole that is the best. Sometimes you have to go, like, a different direction to try to, like, get more points.
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Where was that located at?
In Edina at Southdale.
I might have to take my boys there.
Super awesome. If you sign up online for an account, you get a free round.
Really?
It'll save you like $14, yeah.
That's cool. Maybe I'll take the boys there this weekend.
Yeah, so I think we're going to go back this weekend, actually,
Are you?
with Natalie and Stella, too. And
Yeah, I might take the
make
boys.
them join. Yeah, it's awesome. It's super fun.
Trick-or-treating. Did you guys go?
I did not. I stayed home and handed out candy while the kids went out.
Okay.
But
Do the kids go with Natalie, or do they just go? Are they old
Stella
enough?
goes with friends
Okay.
because they're old enough. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Our town's small enough still, I think, that
Yeah.
it's whatever. But no, Natalie took Drew out for like an hour, and then he was just like, I've had enough. I got enough candy. I'm going home.
Isn't that okay? I'm glad you bring that up.
When we were kids, we just like we took a freaking towel or
Right.
pillow
sack.
pillowcase,
Yeah.
and we didn't come home until that damn thing was full.
Right. I remember like as a kid going to, like, I wasn't going to skip a house. You couldn't convince me to skip
No,
a house. If
heck
the
no.
light was on, I was going.
Yep, for sure.
And I remember like going through our neighborhood, then going to the neighborhood across, and the neighborhood next to, like, I would end up down this rabbit hole of like chasing candy. And it got to the point where like our bags were so heavy sometimes we'd go home and empty them to go back out.
Back out for sure. Yep.
Like my kid was the same way. That's why I asked the question. We went in the same. My oldest went with his friends, so he was gone with friends, and he made out a killing, like tons of candy. But my youngest was just like, he was so excited before we went, like, oh, I get to go without Caden, because Caden always like,
Yeah.
he just runs way faster than him and just makes Ethan makes him mad. And so Ethan was like, oh, I get to go without my brother. It's gonna be great. And then we got out there and we started going through houses. He's like, I don't want to go to that house. I'm like, what? And he's like, no, we'll skip that one. Like just random houses he just didn't want to go to. And I'm like, does it scare you? Like, is there something about that house that scares you? Like, I'll go up the door with you. Nope. Don't want to go to that one. Let's go to the next one. And like,
Interesting.
we'd be driving. I take the side by side because we live out in the country. So
Yep.
obviously, like walking house to house is pretty tough sometimes. But like we get to a house and he just be like, nah, I'm good. Let's keep going.
That's funny. It's funny because like we just have a bunch of random stuff in a bowl, right? And
Yeah.
hold it out and like, hey, grab a couple, grab whatever you want. And there's actually like kids that just grab one and like, oh, I like these, but I don't like the other stuff, so I'll just take one of these. It's like I would always just take 2 no matter what. Like,
Right.
I don't know, give it to somebody,
Right.
take it to school and trade it with somebody for a peanut butter cup.
That's
or
what
something.
happened to like trading. My kids
there's-
didn't do that either. Like they got home, they emptied their bags on the, which is actually one thing that is different in my house now than it was when growing up. Like when we were younger, our candy was our candy.
Oh yeah.
Like my brother didn't get any of my candy, right?
Yep.
My boys pile their candy into one pile.
Really?
Oh yeah, empty their bag like on the counter into one pile, and then they just divided things out. Like, oh, here's peanut butter cups. Oh, here's Hershey's. Blah blah. Blah. And they pick them out, and then they're just like, Dad, you can have all the peanut butter cups.
What?
Yeah, my oldest doesn't like peanut butter, so he's
Wow.
like, you can have the peanut butter cups.
That's good for you.
Which is a win for me every time. Yeah, and
For
my
the
youngest.
record, people should not be allowed to give up Baby Ruths at Halloween. That's disgusting.
I agree with you. Baby Ruth should be
come on.
outlawed.
Peanut butter cups, Kit
That
Kats,
and almond joys.
And what's with people giving up potatoes? What's that all about?
It's like a joke. I don't know. Like I don't know the joke, but yeah, it's like this.
But like
big,
I saw some videos, like I've never seen it before, and people are like, "Oh, the potato house."
Yeah,
I'm
like it
what?
became a thing. Like they give out like 20 potatoes or something a year, and like I don't know.
What are
People
you gonna
just
do with a potato? Throw it at a
nothing.
friend.
But it's
I'm gonna
hilarious.
Throw it at a friend. is
It's
what I'm gonna
hilarious
do.
that you get to say you got a potato.
I suppose,
But I'm gonna give out broken race car parts next year.
we probably got enough for the next 5
As I
years.
said, it will be good. Oh, look at I got a fender. Take this home to your parents. Don't cut yourself.
What was that one thing that you bought that broke
What one thing that I
that
broke?
you didn't buy from America?
What are you talking about?
I don't know. A few weeks ago, you broke something while you were racing, like a fuel pump or something.
Oh, I don't want to talk about it.
You give those up for Halloween?
I would give fuel pumps out for Halloween. Hey, here's a fuel pump. It's still got fuel in it. No, I'm not going to give that away. It's got $10 in fuel in it. So I don't know if you know about inflation. It's fuel's not cheap now.
We're not going to go down that route.
Fuel's not cheap. I'm not giving it away.
You're right.
But yeah, no. So my boys just like piled all their candy together, divided it out, and yeah, there's no trading. They're just like, oh, these suck. They shove them off to the side. And I'm like, in my day, the sucky candy went to school and we traded.
Yeah, for sure.
Yo,
100%.
who wants a bunch of these things that I don't eat?
There's always some goon that wants
There's
a
some
baby
goon
Ruth.
that wants one, right? Yeah. Like, hey, you want this thing? Give me your peanut butter cups.
Or
Okay,
anything with coconut in it. Get that out of here. I don't know what
Coconut.
candy has coconut, but coconut's gross.
I'm not a coconut fan either.
Ugh. No.
But yeah, so that's what I know about trick-or-treating. But it was nice weather. It was a little cool.
A little cool, but didn't snow.
Didn't snow. Didn't rain.
Well, it did a little bit earlier in the day
Didn't for me.
for some people.
I was good.
But
I had no issues with that.
definitely wasn't 1991.
It wasn't 91. No, it was awesome. We drove around in the side-by-side, and then, like I said, my youngest was just like, okay, I'm done. Let's go home.
I just sat by the front door, put the card table by the door, and put
That's
together Legos while kids walked by.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was, yeah.
My mother-in-law came down and handed out candy at our house while
Lucky
we all
you.
went out. So it was kind of cool. Somebody still at the house handing it out. Although my mother-in-law forgot to turn the lights on. So we left before it was like dark because I had young ones, obviously. So
Sure.
we left like before it was completely dark. I come home and I'm like, why are our lights not on?
Mom went home.
I was like, well, we have like these Christmas, like I have permanent Christmas lights in the
Oh, yeah.
house. And so like you could change them for the seasons. So my wife turned them on for Halloween colors. So we had those on, but like the outside lights were off. And so I like drove down the street. I'm like,
pretty
why
funny.
is our house dark? And so I was like, did we run out of candy? So I roll up and I'm like, ask my mother-in-law, did we run out of candy? She's like, no. She's like, we've had 28 people. I'm like, probably would have had 50 if you would have had the lights on.
That's such a grandma thing to do is
Yeah.
count the number of kids.
Yeah. Oh, she had a piece of paper and everything. She had it all written
That's
down. It
really
was
funny.
hilarious.
So 28 kids came. Why is there 240 pieces of candy gone? Were you
Right.
snacking while
Yeah.
we were out?
But there was so much candy left over, dude, because I'm pretty sure that a bunch of kids skipped our house because my
probably, yeah.
mother-in-law had the lights off. So that's awesome. But that's what I know
Sure.
on this week's current events. So jumping into the episode
That
here.
was long enough. I think the episode's over.
The episode's over. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for your time. Goodbye. Thanks for your help there.
Just trying to get back to work. I'm just kidding. I enjoy this show.
Customer questions and comments. I'm going to skip right over that. Do you know the approximate run time to cut an entire sheet of doors? Was the question that I received on one of our MDF door videos. The answer isn't as simple as one might think. There's not just like an answer to that question because it really depends on a number of variables, including obviously what size of the sheets are that you're working with, 4x8 versus 5x10, but also the style of doors that you're running and the size of the actual doors themselves that you're cutting out, because obviously more cutting means more time. But I would say like averages, I went and looked at some averages and me and Sean talked a little bit on like a 5x10 sheet. He says his averages are like 15 to 20 minutes. So think about that.
Still seems pretty quick.
Oh, it's super fast. When you think about being able to produce MDF doors, which come with an increased value, that you can do it in 15 to 20 minutes rather than buying them. So,
For sure.
Especially because I found most people don't run their machines all day, every day. So gives you the ability to make some extra money with something you already own.
Absolutely. And have some more free time at the end of the day.
There it is. And then question 2 was, I do not recall hearing you say the vacuum zone settings on this example. And they were talking about our vacuum video, which we were talking about the All-Star gasket. So if you go out to our YouTube channel, you can check out that video about All-Star gaskets. And again, they were wondering if we run full zone or full open or zoned off for the lower part of the table. And, I always tell everybody, like, you want to close off any unnecessary zones to avoid unnecessary waste. Naturally air goes to the area of least resistance. So if you have zones open that are not being used, you're just bleeding air and making it harder for your parts to be held down. So don't make it harder on the system to work. So turn off the zones you're not using and you will get better vacuum hold down. But that being said, the table we did that demonstration on was a 4x8 machine. It was our IS table. 4-zone solution is what we use. And we had an 8.9 horsepower Becker vacuum pump. And then, of course, we turned the zones all on when we were doing sheets. And then we were doing, like the smaller fixture, we just turned it down to just the zone we were working with. But smaller parts, require more concentrated vacuum. So hopefully that answers your question. Obviously, air will travel to the area of least resistance, as I mentioned earlier. So you don't want to give your air an escape route.
Right.
It's not going to go to your part naturally. If it says, hey, there's restriction there, I'm going to go somewhere else. Where if the only place for it to escape is to your part, it's going to naturally go there. So you want to focus your air where you can. And that's why the All-Star gasket stuff works so well, is because it helps you concentrate the airflow right to where the part is at, and it hopefully produces more holding power for you. So especially if you're working with slipperier materials or smaller parts, it the gasketing material can help you in those scenarios. Although for the vast majority of our customers, they don't use any gasket. They don't need any gasket. Our vacuum table is designed to minimize your need for that, which speeds up your manufacturing processes, reduces your consumable waste, and then obviously gives you great holding power. But there are certain applications where you just simply run into an application where you're going to need some assistance for the vacuum pump.
Makes sense to me.
So there's the answer to that one. And then our final question is, I have an IS 510. I could upgrade in the future if there's an auto labeler option for the new model, which they mentioned that we just released our new ISA video, which is kind of awesome. So you should go check it out. But just, putting it out there, currently we don't have an auto labeler. We'd love to get you into an ISA, but currently it's in discussions for an option in the future. But we've just found that honestly, the labeling process is pretty simple right now. We haven't run into too many scenarios where people have to have it. Now that could change. We just did a time test on that. We have a new video coming out. It's going to be pretty awesome. But we did 6 sheets in under 20 minutes.
Damn.
Or something like that. It's like 6 sheets around 20 minutes.
You just got done saying it takes 15 to do 1 sheet.
Right.
So.
And that's what I'm saying, how fast that machine was.
Really fast.
Yeah, it's, when you think about that, it comes out to be like over 100 sheets in an 8-hour shift, which most people don't have the work
who's got
to
that
keep
much
up
work?
with. Yeah, to keep up with that. There's a lot of work out there, but to do that day in and day out, like that machine's going to outperform most shops. So,
but you can cut that much, but you also need to install that much.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like
it's the next steps. You got to finish it. You got to install it. You got everything else. So we've just found that labeling it isn't, something that is absolutely required on a lot of applications. Now a lot of people have had success with like the Dynamo label printers. I think you have one, Nick, right? You have a Dynamo?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and so those label printers work really slick, and you can hook them right up to the control and just print right out of it. And as you're taking the parts off the conveyor, you're just putting the sticker on at the same time. Yeah, so speeds up the entire process. It's a one-step process, and yeah, we found success in that, and it doesn't cost you any extra real money to do that. I guess that's the biggest thing we've always looked at is how can we minimize your investment cost while maintaining quality. So for us, we found that a lot of people don't mind putting the labels on themselves to save several $1,000s. So yeah, that's what I know.
Those were good questions.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Even better answers.
Hey, I appreciate that. Obviously, everybody listening, if you have any questions or comments, anything that we haven't addressed, make sure you shoot us an email. You can send it to sales@shopsabre.com. You can send it to marketing@shopsabre.com. Or, of course, you can just leave it in the comments section of the videos or wherever you're listening to this from. So we'll try to do our best to answer your questions. So
one other option we haven't mentioned on this show for contacting us.
Yeah.
Chad@shopsabre.com. Just because it's been so many weeks.
Send it to Chad@shopsabre.com. Yeah, we always appreciate when you guys pick on Chad. He also appreciates it. So, with that, the audience question of the week. What do you do to regain focus and control when you hit a rut in your personal or business life? I think we're all getting into a busy season. We're getting into the end of the year. I think it's easy to get distracted right now. You got holidays, you got family, you got so much stuff going on. Kids going back to sports and all the fun stuff that happens in the winter. What do you do to regain your focus and control when you hit a rut in your personal or business life? I'd love to hear from you. Share with us on that. Nick, take it away. What do you do?
I think you just have to kind of look back on all the positives, right? And think about all the good things that got you to where you are currently to kind of realize that maybe you're in a little bit of a downswing or whatever due to maybe the daylight savings time getting dark early. People kind of dislike that type of thing. But
current events, daylight savings. Sorry, continue.
Good one. But no, I think you just need to focus on all the positives and not get more caught up in whatever's bringing you into that rut, I guess.
I love that answer because I do think my dad taught me at an early age that don't forget where you came from.
Yep.
It's something that he used to always really preach on. And a lot of, I think, business owners forget where they came from. They get successful and then they stop doing the things that made them successful. And I think that's something that we've always stayed true to here at ShopSabre, or at least tried to, and that's, supporting our customers and being there for them. But I think that's the biggest thing. When you get into a rut, look at what's always worked. Look at what's continuing to work, because sometimes you run into a bad week, right?
Yep.
You just, for no other explanation, shit just doesn't go right.
Yeah.
Simple as that. You're just getting your butt kicked and you just feel like, I don't know what to do to get out of my own way, right? But I think sometimes you just got to take a step further back and look at the bigger picture and really take a step back into where have we come? Where are we going? What's our course of plan? Do you have a plan? Get back to the plan, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is for me, when I get in a rut in my personal life or my business life, I try to just remind myself of all of the good that has come, and that like a rainstorm, They don't last forever.
Right.
And so sometimes you just got to weather it. Weather some of the crappy situations, if you will, right? Find a way to motivate yourself. But also, I try to find things that excite me or motivate me. That's another thing that I think I do that helps me get through those moments is looking ahead to future moments, right? Like I'm excited. I know this sucks right now to do this, but if I get it done, I will be able to focus on that. And like there's something in the future, and sometimes it's simply, as bad as it sounds, sometimes it's looking forward to another event, right? Hey, we got Thanksgiving coming up, and I love Thanksgiving. It's like my favorite holiday.
It's the best.
It's my favorite holiday. And so I look ahead to that, right? Like, okay, I don't want to do this meeting, or I don't want to do that, but hey, it's one day closer to Thanksgiving, right? Or it's one day closer to, your birthday or, your anniversary or whatever you're excited about that's coming up,
Or sometimes you're probably like, God, I just flipped my race car 2 weeks ago. But you think about all those times that you won before that and all the future times you're going to win next year.
No, that didn't happen at all.
Never? Not once this week? I bet it did.
No.
You thought of all the good times you had in that race car while
I sat in the garage.
all tore apart.
I actually sat in the garage and just played soul music while they all replayed in my head.
Sorry to bring that back up, but it applies to the situation.
It applies perfectly, actually. Yeah. Actually, you know what's funny about that? I'm going to tell you a little story. We were in the garage the other day, tearing the race car apart, hence the giant cut on my head.
I was going to ask you about that yesterday, but I want to bring it up.
It's okay. You can ask about it. Yeah, I slammed my head into the underside of my race car. So not only did I wreck the car, it wrecked my head. So I'm out there working on the race car, and my youngest comes in, Ethan, and he's so funny, dude. He's 8 years old. Walks in, puts his hands softly on the side of the race car, and goes, "She was a good car." And I couldn't help but just bust out laughing in the moment. I did. I just busted out laughing. And he's like, "What? She was." And I was like, "You're right, buddy. It was a very good car. It did its job." But like the fact that he came in and recognized like it's done.
Yeah.
Like I have not told him I'm getting rid of it, nothing. But he just walked in, put his hands softly on the side of the roll cage. She was a good car.
That's really funny.
But yeah, it's the truth though. Like you do have to look at it from that, because honestly, like I was upset in the moment that I wrecked this car. It's been a good car to me.
Yep.
But I'm excited now for the future. It's an opportunity to build another one, to do things that I didn't do with the last one that I wish I would have done, right? I mean, it's opportunities to improve. There's always, even in failure, there's an opportunity for improvement. So, yeah.
What if they had like, this is kind of off topic, but what if like you invented something that like, they always have these things that like airbags in cars that somehow come out just like as soon as, like what if there was something on the side of your car that, like once you got sideways and it felt it starting to tip over to roll over, like a bar came out and hit the ground and kept it from rolling over?
I feel like there's a number of things that can go wrong in that situation.
Or maybe like a bar on the front of the car and the back of the car, so it still just hit the ground and came back and didn't.
Well, when you're going 80 miles an hour, that bar is just going to change the direction that you're rolling.
Well, maybe.
It's like an explosion at that point. Like, oh, we're going left. No, wait, there's more. You're going right now. But then it's going to
come back the other way to the ground.
Yeah, no, I feel like you're going to just make things worse. For one, like maybe in a soft rollover it might work, but in my rollover it happens so fast that bar is just going to send me like catapulting through the air.
I thought I had $1 million idea, and I just killed my dreams.
It scares me. I don't want your idea on my race car.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, that's what I know. So that's what I do.
So what if it went flying up in the air and it had an automatic parachute that came out and just softly landed you to the ground?
You know,
there's got to be a way to make this work.
You're on to it. We're going to put automatic parachutes on our race cars.
I'm going to contact our friends at JR Motorsports.
Okay, you do that. Get in touch with JR Motorsports, see if they're willing to put parachutes on their race cars. If they will do it, I will do it next.
And then I won't be working for you anymore.
And you will be the new safety inspector for all of NASCAR.
It was just an idea.
It was a great idea. I've never heard a better one.
I feel like it wasn't, but
I've never heard a better one in my life.
Your reaction says differently.
I'm telling you I like it. Moving on to strategic moves. That was not a strategic move.
I felt like it was.
It was very unstrategic.
You could have had a saved race car if that was implemented into your program.
Okay, fair enough. I should have installed, I don't even know what you call it.
Anti-roll kickstand.
Anti-roll kickstand. Kickstand. I should have installed a kickstand for my race car. Today we're going to tackle a topic that I think is far more beneficial than what we've been talking about here. And I can't help but to say this might get a little bit longer than intended, but I think it's a good topic. It's strategic moves. And, honestly, to me, it's critical to staying competitive and resilient in any business. It's making key decisions for your company's future before those decisions are due. And to me, I think it's about being proactive in business versus reactive in business.
100%.
And, if you're a business owner or a decision maker in your business, you know that the pressures of deadlines are real, right? We all feel them. And waiting until those deadlines, are upon us, it can limit your options. I think procrastination is a real thing in business. Like a lot of business owners don't address a problem until that problem is the number one priority, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, I know this is going to be a problem one day, but it's not a problem today, so I'm not going to worry about it, right?
And then before you know it, those 8 days have gone by, and now it's
well, I think it's
ready to
even
go.
sometimes, yeah. I mean, well, that at least with 8 days, there's a time frame. But I'm talking about the deadlines you don't even think about. Like this machine's going to fail, right? Or this thing's not going to work anymore. Like
Sure.
if I jiggle the handle, it works. But eventually, jiggling the handle doesn't work anymore,
sure.
right?
Yep,
And it's like they put it off because jiggling the handle still works. So
you're saying, this handle's going to not work in 4 weeks from now. So get
Well,
a plan
at some
in place,
point, right.
but get a plan in place to replace it before
right.
it doesn't work
like
anymore.
you shouldn't have to jiggle the handle to make it work, right?
sure. Yep.
And so I think that's the thing is, proactive planning, by contrast, keeps you in the driver's seat, right? And allows you to strategize your growth, your agility, and your resilience, right?
Yep.
Versus being just reactive to like, okay, well, now it's too late, so now we're limited on our options. We can't plan anymore. We can't strategize on it. Like, we have to Band-Aid it because something's broken, right?
And then you may deliver something that's not up to your quality standards. You have unhappy customers that they didn't get what they wanted.
Correct.
There's so many
outcomes
that
from
go-
that,
yeah.
right? And I think that's what we need to talk about is why making decisions early is essential for the long-term success of a business or your life even, right? Let's start off with why is it so important to make a decision before you're backed into a corner, right? Well, the reality is the earlier you make the decision, the more control you're going to have over your business. And I think it goes back to setting a timeline for yourself versus the timeline setting the outcome for you, right?
Yep.
And I think this is true with everything from your equipment investments in your shop, whether it's a mill, a welder, it's a paint machine, whatever, all the way to your staffing, right? I think that's another thing people think about is, the process of improvements, the marketing positions. How many times in business have you heard someone getting handcuffed because of a piece of equipment that goes down, right? Something fails. And they have no other choice than to pay someone a crazy amount to get the job done on time, right?
Yep.
Because they just put off new equipment, right? Or how often does a key employee leave a business? How many times you've heard that? Where a key employee leaves a business and that business is now unprepared for their exit and now scrambling.
Yep.
I think that's one of the number one things I hear about in business is that guys they become so dependent on the guy in their shop that cuts the cabinets. He's the best there ever was. You're right, he is. But what if he gets sick? What if he gets tired of doing it and quits? So many things can happen in life that can, on a spur of a moment, change somebody's outlook. And when that happens, can your business continue?
Probably not at the level it needs to.
Right. Because you're so dependent on that one person's skill set, right?
Yep.
Where having processes in place, that person doesn't become any less valuable to you. They're still the trainer, they help you, but your business isn't handcuffed, right?
Right.
And so you have to think about it like this. Avoid crisis mode, right? That's number one priority. When decisions are rushed, you may not have the time to explore all your options, for one. You can't negotiate the best deals because, again, you don't have time. And when you don't have time, you're giving the control to the person you're buying from.
Yep.
Because they know you're dependent on them. And you can't make adjustments based on new information you obtain, right? Somebody tells you about something, a new process, a new tool. You can't go explore it because you don't have time to change your processes. You're already dependent on it. You end up reacting rather than planning. And that's why I said you want to be proactive versus reactive because otherwise it leads into less than ideal results. That's how I've looked at it.
You may end up settling for something that doesn't
Right.
do what you actually really need it to.
Maybe
Maybe you're just kind of piecing it together to get you to the end.
Yeah, I feel like you almost every time settle. You don't have a choice but to settle.
Right. Because the part that you want is a lead time of 4 weeks maybe, and you can't get it because you need to do
that,
stuff
or you
now.
may not even know it. Like you don't even investigate what you really want. Somebody gives you a solution and you take it.
Yep. So you're like, oh, sounds good.
Sounds good.
It's going to work and get us back working, right?
Yep, exactly.
And then a week later, it fails again.
And you end up with an import off the shelf generic solution
Yep.
that lasts you a year and then you're regretting it, right? And you might not even get a year out of it.
Right.
So, the other thing that I think that you have to think about is maximizing your flexibility, right? Like planning ahead often gives you access to more resources, whether it be financing options. That's something to think about. Like if you think about it in advance, you can plan it out financially, but then you can also implement strategies for buying, right? If you're thinking about upgrading your CNC machine, for example, because, hey, we're in the CNC business, so let's talk about them. Deciding early lets you explore different technologies. You can understand what a rack and pinion is versus ball screw, and you can start to understand what's better for your application. And then you can start going, okay, now I figured out which machine model I want. Now let's look at financing. Yeah. How can I make this the most affordable? Do I want to lease it? Do I want to, buy it outright in cash? Do I want to do a 6-month, a 12-month, a deferred? Like, what do I want to do with this thing? Do they have any 0% interest options, right? What's the timeline for these options? And then you can kind of work through it that way. You're not just forced to pick what's available, right? Because if everything's down and the CNC machine's down and they got 10 jobs to do, who's got one the fastest I can get it?
And this kind of made me think of, like, if you're buying your first machine right now and say you have some time to get it to your shop. Say you have, 2 months before, that you have, because you're planning ahead, right?
Right.
And you can actually get all the options that you want because, let's be honest, there's some options that you add on a machine that add to the lead time, right?
Add times,
whatever.
Yep.
But you're planning ahead, so you can get all those options right away,
right,
and have the best machine for your business from the get-go, rather than having to kind of work backwards and add those things later,
or buy a different machine,
right? And have them work on your machine, hopefully.
Yeah, agreed, 100% with you. Because okay, well, this guy can get this machine to be a week, and that'll we only lose a week's worth of time, but it's missing the tool changer. I'll just change bits by manual right now. Like, you start to get into this rut where it's like, now we're just making a tool work for us,
right,
because we didn't plan accordingly.
And all the extra time then you're spending doing manual tool changes all day long.
If I had $1 for every business owner who's come to me and said, I just landed a big job, it's going to be due in 3 months, I need a machine. Like, you should look for the machine before you bid on the job.
For sure.
If you're going to end up in that situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I can't imagine if you're bidding on those jobs now, you're going to ever quit.
No, not at all.
Like, if you started bidding on them, you're going to bid on them always.
You're going to, like we talked about before, you're going to be more of that yes man.
Yeah.
Doing more work than you did before, because
give yourself the ability. Yeah, for sure, man. And then, I think then you talk about the type of decisions to be made ahead of time, right? What do those look like? So, what are the specific decisions or the type of decisions that can be made in advance? As we start to look at that, the first one that I think about is the one we're talking about right now, is equipment and technology investments. Technology evolves quickly, for one. I mean, I think we all throw away technology as fast as we buy it because it evolves. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've bought new phones over the years because of new technology, right? But especially in CNC automation, deciding early to upgrade equipment or integrate automation technology allows you to research your options. Like you said, find out what options are important to you, plan the financing, as we talked about earlier, ensure the seamless transition. That's the one thing about it, is the transitional period, learning how to use the machine before you're upon a deadline, right? You don't have costly downtime. And then obviously newer technology can give you a competitive edge, because there's a lot of people that I know that are running machines from the 80s or 90s, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yes, you're right, they do work, but do you know how much time people waste by using older technology?
Quite a bit.
The efficiency alone of those machines, like, they're just not capable of doing what new machines could do. And then you think about the accuracy and the cut quality. Like, a lot of time those machines don't keep up with current standards. The bits of today are more advanced than what those machines are capable of achieving.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff, so much of that stuff changes weekly,
fast.
monthly. I mean, yearly is a long time for things to change, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's always constantly evolving.
Yeah, you think about the production speed alone, like your product speeds and things like that. Like, the world today, you look at what your business demand is today versus 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, we weren't working on Sundays.
Right.
Nobody went to work on Sundays. Now everything's open on Sunday.
Yep.
And our sales guys, they're emailing on Sundays now. I know they are. But it's just like, you start to look at that. So the equipment technology investment is something you need to think about in advance. The other thing is staffing. And more importantly, alongside staffing is the training of your staff, right?
Yep.
Because people are your greatest asset. I don't care what you're in. People still are the greatest asset that you can have. And training takes time.
For sure.
It's simple as that. Like, planning for your future hires is important. You don't want to hire because of, oh my God, we need somebody right now. Well, it's already too late then.
And not to mention that it takes you time to train them and get them up to speed, right? But then at the same time, for them, it feels like it puts stress and pressure on them, because they feel rushed to getting everything known and educated on everything so that they can be the best employee that you're looking for, right?
Well, I also think about the exact adverse effect. Somebody's got to train them. which a lot of times is your other employees.
Right.
So you didn't help them. You slowed them down further because now they have a person that's supposed to help them, but they got to take the time away from what they're doing to train that person during the time you need them.
And thus putting you behind on what
Further.
you're working on because you didn't plan accordingly and hire them a month sooner.
Right.
To get them up to speed.
And then, you know, the skills that need to be developed along the way to ensure the team has the experience, the expertise to handle all your new equipment, your software, your processes. Again, when you start kind of implementing things in a fire, right? Oh my God, we're in critical time right now. You're going to teach them how to do the exact project you're working on,
Right.
not versatility. So that person becomes very one-dimensional, right? They're very good at doing the one thing because that's all you have time to teach them on.
Right. And
We
then,
need you to do this right now.
and then you don't go back to doing that same project for another month. And then what do they do for the month in between? Learn
Right.
another thing instead of training fully on
Yep.
all of the aspects.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're considering specialized equipment, like a CNC machine, you know, being able to learn all of the skills, the required skills, gives you so much versatility and the ability to really utilize that machine fully in your business.
For sure.
So that's why I always tell people, like, just because you don't need the machine for 8 weeks doesn't mean you should wait 6 to do it.
Right.
You know, like, get started now so it can get in there. You can get it installed. You can get the electricians all get it hooked up. Everything's ready to go. Even if it's not necessarily turning money right away, it's giving you time to like get comfortable with the processes.
You're definitely gonna make up that time and money by having it ahead of time.
100%.
Having the slow learning process into it rather than having to rush.
I would say my most successful customers are the ones who don't rush into it.
For sure.
They have the ability to. They might rush into the decision, but they don't rush into like the deadlines. They're not booking deadlines before the machine arrives, so that way they end up in a situation where they can't learn the machine. Like my most successful customers are the ones who are quick to adopt the information or the technology, but take the time to go through the entire integration process.
For sure. Yep.
And you know, the facility expansions and you know process changes are another thing that I think people should think about planning in advance. You know, specifically facility upgrades. You know, workflows. You know, adjustments to are a major decision factor, right? Like they can take months. And you know, specifically for us, somebody who has moved several times in a small amount of years. Now, fortunately, we haven't moved in several years now, but there was a period of time where we moved 4 times in 5 years.
That's crazy.
Like crazy amount of moving. And you know, that type of like movement really defocuses the company. It's hard to set up new processes and then have to move and then set up new process and move. So it's like, take it from my experience. Planning ahead is much better. We had planned ahead on this building and now we haven't had to move. We have a strategic plan. Like everything comes together. It has been far more affordable to be in this building, which is much bigger, than it was to move all those times.
Yep.
And then you think about, you know, growing into your space rather than growing out of your space, you know, and that's something to think about. And then optimizing the layout so that everything flows correctly and you're not wasting time. You don't got people walking backwards, you know, in production, if that makes sense.
For sure.
You want everything to flow like a production line. I mean, I think that's the thing that I would tell everybody the most about, you know, production is look at how the big companies do it. When you look at production lines like Ford, you don't see cars going down the production line and then backing up. Like, right? I mean, it continues forward all the time. And I think that's how you need, you know, you need to find your bottlenecks, face your bottlenecks and plan for them, right?
Yep. And I think we talked about it before too, like with machine purchases kind of applies to the same thing. We're like growing into it, right? Like, yeah, sure. You may only need, I don't know, let's say a 408 or a 4x8 machine now, but in the future we maybe need a 5x10 or 6x12.
Maybe.
Why not get the bigger one and grow into it so you're prepared, right?
Yeah, I think, and that can go both ways though too. As I think sometimes people, they buy too big.
Sure.
Like if you know that you're never going to go that route ever.
Sure. But if you know that you eventually you could maybe get there.
Well, if there's anything that you do that demands it, like you know, that aspect works great if you're like, hey, I cut 4x8s all day long, but once in a while we do some 5x5 or once in a while we do 5x10, but I'll just do those off the machine. Like, no, just buy the 5x10 because if you're doing it at some capacity today, you should plan for it in the future.
Absolutely.
But my thing that drives me kind of crazy is when you see people are like, I cut 4x8s all day long. I'm going to buy a 6x12 machine. Like, that's just overkill. You're wasting valuable floor space, which I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of extra valuable floor space. And then 2, you're going to make your job harder because 4x8 sheets on a 6x12 is more vacuum leakage. It's what we just talked about. Concentrating your air to your parts, it becomes harder. So it actually slows your process down because you have the wrong tool for the job.
Yeah.
So it's like, think about what you're doing before you do it, right? Plan it because your processes change and you want to make sure that you're thinking about that. And the same goes for, you know, marketing positions our market positions, if you will. And I say marketing, but like, I mean market, like the market itself, not marketing like your guy out advertising, but like your market position and your brand development. Like, where are you positioned in your market? Consider how your company's branding is, appearing. How does it fit the current market? And where do you want to go with it? What is your goal for it? Like, looking ahead versus like, oh my God, the market changed and now we got to change everything we're doing. Like, be out in front of it. Look what the market's doing now and then be proactive with it. That means rebranding sometimes. Sometimes you got to, I think a perfect example of this is NASCAR. You go back to NASCAR in the 80s and it was all cigarettes and beer.
Yep.
Like 100%. Like Marlboro.
It was everywhere.
Yeah, it was the Winston Cup, right? Like, it was all these things, but they had to go through this rebranding phase. And at one point they went through the energy drink phase where they were, going through all of the energy drink stuff.
Yep.
And then now, they've kind of rebranded into more like family orientated businesses. There's a lot of, household products. But like, it's that same mentality that you should have in your business is you have to really think about what your brand aligns with and does it fit the current market, and emphasize the values like sustainability or innovation. Start looking at that. Each requires careful thought no matter what you're doing. And, it's an early start to aligning your marketing, your sales, your product strategies is thinking about this.
Again, it goes back to just being proactive and not reactive. Because if you don't do it until it's too late, your whole rebranding and marketing is going to be lost cause.
And it's expensive then.
Right.
Because it has to happen fast. The other thing that, I think about is the financial forecasting and budgeting. And this is probably one of the bigger ones. I probably should have moved to the top of my list. But, budgeting is always a key part of your business, right?
Yeah.
But it's being proactive planning, right? You forecast revenue, expenses, market trends, right? And you're better prepared for downturn or better positioned for opportunities that present themselves if you have a budget, right? I think early financial planning in a company can be a difference maker, knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it. Allocate funds for crucial investments before they become urgent. Again, if your machine goes down and you have no money set aside, now you're scrambling.
For sure.
Trying to figure out what you can afford to buy rather than buying what you need. I think that can go into anybody's lives too. It's, you try to put money aside in case the furnace goes down, right?
Yep.
Like in case your washing machine goes down. You don't want to be in a situation where now you don't have what you need. So I think that's just something to, think about in general. And sometimes you do run a little, I'll be honest, as a business, sometimes there's days when you're like, well, hopefully nothing goes wrong today.
Right.
It happens. I get it. But, trying to budget for it and, plan for the future investments and upgrades that you're going to do. But, again, some of my tips for making, the future focused decisions, it's really about strategy, I think is my thing, setting a clear long-term goal. I think what's your vision for your company? Ask yourself that. Whether it's expanding into a new market, increasing your production efficiencies, or offering a broader range of services, right? Maybe it's just you want to start offering something new. You need to have a clear goal though, that allows you to backtrack and identify milestones that you need to hit and investments that need to make to get there. I think that's the one thing that people don't think about. It's not just about the milestone. Hey, I want to be a $200 million company, right? Okay.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a plan to get there.
Right. You got to hit some milestones.
Hope you get there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key is you got to hit certain goals along the way, setting those, and then you have to build a flexible data-driven plan. And I think data is number one thing is if you can't measure it, you don't know if you're winning or losing, right?
Correct.
So you have to have a way to measure it. And my dad used to always say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That's what he used to tell me. So you have to find data points. And then you have to build some flexibility because sometimes life doesn't go the way you want it to. Don't put everything in stone.
Right.
So, I think that's the biggest thing is the market isn't static, right? Your plan shouldn't be either.
No.
Use data to inform your decisions. Whether, that's tracking industry trends, assessing your equipment's lifespan, whether it's checking hours, maintenance records, things like that. Evaluating employees' development, that's something we do. We do reviews periodically, right?
Yeah.
And we check in with employees on how they're doing. And, I'm very two-way street. Ask the employees how they're doing. Tell them that you'll make time for them, right? Mm-hmm. Let them voice their opinion because sometimes they'll tell you things you don't know, right? And then build flexibility into your planning process, allowing you to adapt without derailing your overall strategy. Because sometimes an employee is going to come to you and tell you, like, we're really struggling in this area, and you don't see it.
Yep.
And then you go start investigating that, and you realize, no, we really are struggling in that area. So be ready to make a decision. Like, okay, well, if they're struggling in that, let's go buy a piece of equipment to help them. If somebody comes to me and says the machine's not working all the time, I'm just making it work, rather than being like, well, you're doing a great job making it work, man. Talk to you later. Like,
continue to struggle.
Right, exactly. Like, they're going to get frustrated, and then that turns into a, now what if that employee leaves and they handcuff you because now you have a machine that works mediocre at best, and the person who knows how to make it work just left.
And now the new person has no idea what to
Right.
do.
And that person is going to be more frustrated. So it's like you're better off just to upgrade the equipment or fix the equipment, get them to a situation so you don't lose an employee and have an equipment that doesn't work, right?
Yep.
So, the other thing is you need to engage in scenario planning like we were just talking about, right? Imagine the what ifs. I think that's what sets like really successful people apart is they're always worried about something.
Right.
Like I think that's the most successful people in my life I know worry all the time.
But if you're not, that's just you thinking that everything's going to go smoothly
Right.
and perfectly and
Right.
not being prepared for those things to happen.
Correct. I think like listening to my dad talk. My dad's always worried about everything, and he's like, "What if there's a sudden increase in demand?
Yep.
What how are we going to produce more machines faster if we need?" Like he's always thinking about that next step.
Yep.
Even if we might not need to output more machines right now, or whatever the scenario is at that moment. He's always thinking about how can he increase his throughput, right?
But that's smart. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people, I think, would look at that as like, I don't know, a negative.
Right.
Don't you think? Like they're always,
Correct.
Why focus on that? But
Why
you
worry
have to
about it?
focus on that to obviously be prepared for it.
Yeah, what about supply chain disruptions, right?
Yeah.
I get a lot of that with sales. When I talk to people considering an American-made product like ShopSabre versus an import product. And we bring up, like, what about supply chain disruptions? What about not being able to get parts? And they're like, oh, you're just trying to badmouth. No, I'm asking you to physically think about
Right.
what happens if a supply chain situation happens.
Yep.
Like, we've spent a lot of time making sure we're sustainable. We proved it through COVID. We were one of the few companies with the lowest lead times. Like, our lead times were half of what most people were because we were sustainable. But, it's called scenario planning, understanding how different situations might impact your business. And then what resources are needed to respond to those situations? Think about the roadmap for navigating good and bad surprises. Because guess what? Businesses are full of surprises.
Absolutely. On both sides of the avenue, like you said, good and bad.
And then honestly, get input from your team. That's something that I think is huge. People using the equipment, managing your workflow, talking to your customers. They're going to have insight, some insight. It might not always be what you want to hear, but it's usually valuable in the planning process, and it'll get you a more rounded view on what you. And it doesn't mean just because you listen, to what they had to say, it doesn't mean you have to act on every little thing.
Right.
But being heard sometimes is a big part of your employees feeling like they're going to keep contributing. Right.
Well, and I think like we talked about before, like there's a lot of things that you don't do because you have people around you doing the jobs, right? That you don't know about. So how are you going to know if they don't come and tell you and talk to you about it?
1,000%. That's why I walk the sales floor every day and ask them, like, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? Because I just want to know.
Right.
Like, if you're frustrated, I want to know why. And then, partner with reliable people too. I think that's the thing is whether it's your vendors or your service provider, whoever it is, making investments in anything should matter on who you're investing with, right?
100%.
Are they reputable? Are they trusted? Do they provide support? Like, prioritize not just the quality, because I think quality is always important, but also the support that comes along with that quality, right?
Because ultimately their service and what they provide is going to be a reflection on you.
Direct reflection, exactly. Because even the best products in the world are going to have a problem once in a while.
Absolutely.
Like, it happens.
Yep.
Like, I don't care what you buy, there's always a bad one out there.
Yep.
It's somebody's got a bad story about everything, right? There's always one person out there that's going to have something to say negative about everything. So you have to ensure that if something does happen to you, are there people there to support you and back you up? Do they care?
Right.
Because there are going to be people that will trash a company just because their buddy works for a different one, and they're going to make the story seem like that company's the worst company ever, just so they can steer, business towards their buddy.
Absolutely.
It happens. But at the end of the day is you got to look at, like, really what are you getting with the purchase of whatever you're doing.
Hopefully the best possible thing there is.
I agreed. And then for me, I want to share a few real life scenarios real fast. I know it's getting long on this episode. But, manufacturing company that, we had a business that recognized their demand for increasing, production. And they invested in a ShopSabre machine, upgraded their processes before they hit maximum capacity, right? They saw that things were starting to trend a certain direction. They were an early adopter of adding it. And the decision meant they could, scale their business smoothly and meet the demands without sacrificing their quality and speed. And the ability to say yes before that need was, there, allowed them to continue to grow. I mean, it's something that's a real story that I've seen, and just being able to get into that. So, it's some of those things, but again, the cost of delaying decisions can really be a big thing. It's going to increase your costs and downtime. It's going to, cause you to lose opportunities, and it's going to decrease your employee morale and productivity. So you got to also take that into consideration. So kind of, as you wrap it all together, there's a lot of negatives that can also affect with poor strategy, right?
Yep.
But proactive planning isn't just a business strategy. It's a mindset. It's about staying one step ahead so you can be ready to take on the future with confidence. And, take a look at your current setup. That's what I would ask everybody listening to this is, what's your current goals? Ask yourself, what changes can I start planning for today to set my business up for success tomorrow?
Yep.
Or in this case, we're at the end of the year. What can you do right now in the fourth quarter to make sure that 2025 is a better year for yourself? And you really have to start to think about that. So that's what I got in today's episode. I hopefully helped a lot of people, think about strategy sessions and planning for the next year, not getting, to the, well, we're okay right now, so we'll make it through it. No, start thinking about what are you doing next? How can you upgrade? What can you change? Maybe it is buying a new CNC machine. Maybe it is buying new software. It's hiring a new person, but you need to start thinking about those things now.
100%. 2025 is going to be gone before it.
We'll be doing the same episode at the end of next year, talking about the same things.
Yep.
But let's jump forward, because it's my favorite segment. The internet is broken. The internet's broken. So you had a fun one this morning.
I did.
You have a weather page.
I do.
Which is kind of crappy, but whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I'm just reading the comments. I'm sorry. I'm just going off what people are telling me. Tell the people what happened to you this morning.
So I shared a commercial from some people that support my page. Some people that have done work for my family.
Right.
Just shared a quick little video, letting them know that they can do work all through the winter, but now is the time to plan ahead.
Right.
And get things fixed before you go into the wintertime with leaky windows or whatever. That's going to cost you more money with your energy bill or whatever. And somebody messaged complaining that they were thinking they were going to come for a weather update and not some commercial for a construction company that was 30 minutes long. And it was just like...
It wasn't 30 minutes. It was 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Did I say minutes?
You said minutes.
30 seconds. Yeah, 30 seconds. So I just replied back and said, sorry that 30 minutes... I don't even remember what I said at this point, but that 30 minutes of had such a huge effect
What you said
life.
Doesn't matter at that point.
No.
What matters is you literally got critiqued on your own personal page for not providing them with a weather update every second of their life.
But I did do that 15 minutes prior.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You had a weather update, and then you did this, and now they're upset about it. Don't feel bad, because
I don't.
I can't even crash correctly.
If you'd had the kickstands.
Seriously. I was criticized on the internet for my driving ability when I was an innocent bystander in this whole accident. I wouldn't have anything to do with it. They crashed ahead of me. I was a collected car in the scenario. But I had people there was a guy out there that was basically just trolling me, trying to tell everybody how bad of a race car driver I am because I was caught up in this accident.
Right.
So I've told everybody that there's a critic in everything.
Yep, for sure.
Blow those people off because the internet is broken. Everybody's got a voice.
Or reply back to them and tell them how silly they are.
You go ahead. I don't care. I just laugh.
Well, I laugh too, but at the same time,
I actually told her to go play video games in their mom's basement.
That's pretty funny.
I did.
I told her to have the best day have
the day she deserves. I like that one. Yeah, no,
she can take it however she wants.
Yeah, I just took it as you know what? This isn't a video game. You don't get to hit reset just because something happened. In the moment, I had a split second decision to make, and I didn't end up, I guess, on the right side of the decision making. Right?
I don't know. I just still don't understand why people act that way.
You know why?
Do
you know why? The internet is broken. That's why.
God, I just wish there was some way to fix it.
It's never going to happen.
Never happening.
But yeah.
I want to go back to 1995 when we just had pagers and crappy cell phones that we had to
You've got mail.
T9 text on, push the same number 4 times to get a certain letter. Remember that?
Mom, I'm on the internet.
Get off the internet. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I can hear you dialing up. Damn it.
So funny.
I'd still go back to that time, man.
I agree with you. This week's motivational quote. You either step forward into growth or you step back into safety. And I thought that was an important one as you think about planning and you move towards next year, is you have 2 choices right now. Step forward into growth, start making changes, do things that you're going to need to do for growth of your business. That means hiring that next person, buying a new piece of equipment, doing what you need to do to grow, or you're going to step back into safety. And that's stuff you're comfortable with, things that this has always worked for us. And you have to be okay with that because that means you're going to put growth on hold because you know what works, and you're okay with and content with being who you are today. But that means you're allowing your competition to take the next step.
Yep.
And it's a game of chess, not checkers, in my opinion. And so you got to be willing to make the move for the future. Otherwise, your competitor will make the move and put you into your next move.
Always look to step forward.
Always look to step forward. So that's my final thoughts of the week, is that take a step forward, look for your opportunities, find out what you can do to move your business forward. Because if you are not, as I just mentioned, your competitors are making moves. Your competition is continuing to move. And if you're not going to be the one to make the move first, you'll be the one forced to be reactive.
And
because
trying to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise they're going to go after, the business that you have. They're going to continue to do things that will hurt you in your growth. And eventually when that trend is already captured by somebody else, you're now just following along, trying to grab the pieces behind them.
Correct.
So, be the lion. I've always said that. Be the lion, go get it. Don't be the vulture, right?
Yep.
The lion goes, attacks first, and then the vulture cleans up the pieces, right?
For sure.
Don't be the one walking in and trying to pick up all the pieces after somebody else has already, cleaned house.
Right.
So, there's so many things you can do for your business. Be that person that's going to go out and lead. Be that person that's going to go take pride in what they do. Grow your business. I think especially right now, it's voting day. Be American first before anything else. Make sure that you are supporting your business, doing what you can to grow yourself, to take care of, the jobs that are dependent on you, the customers that are depending on you. Do what you can to be very forward thinking first. Don't be reactive to the other people's, solutions to your problem.
For sure. I got one thing to add.
Add it.
We've talked about the election a couple times.
Yeah.
So obviously, moving forward, there's going to be a lot of people that are happy, a lot of people that are unhappy.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
in the end, we're all humans that need to work together.
Agreed.
And treat each other with respect, whether you agree or disagree.
Agreed.
Don't treat people like crap because they don't agree with you. Everybody can have their opinion.
Agreed.
Let's just all work together to be one common good, right?
I agree with that 100%. I like it because I think we got to get back to that. Being American first before we're political driven.
100%.
Right? Like, forget about all the other things that are meant to divide us. Let's just get back to being human, having compassion for one another. And
I think we can all agree that none of those people really care about us in the end. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
like whatever. We have to make the best of it for each other,
Right.
and treat each other with respect and be nice to each other and be kind. That's the easiest thing we can do in the world.
Yep.
Like, it
I
costs
always
nothing
tell
to be
them,
kind.
nobody else is sitting at my desk helping me out.
Right.
It's the people around me that are. So I'm not going to, just because we have a difference of opinion or whatnot, I'm not
Right.
going to drive them away from me, because my job becomes exponentially harder without the people around me.
100%.
And so I think that's what people need to remember, is who's actually helping you, who's in your life. Don't drive them out simply based on something that may or may not truly directly affect your guys' friendships.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you guys listening to us. We're just two normal dudes talking about things that sometimes don't make any sense, or, talking about business, talking about fun. But remember, if you're looking for reliable tools, support, resources to help you choose, things to move forward, or, whatnot, forward thinking decisions, ShopSabre is here as a partner. We want to help you with your journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, as always, please subscribe. Leave a review, share it with somebody who you think could use a nudge towards a, proactive decision making. Maybe it's your boss. Send it to them. Hey, just listen to this episode. But anyways,
I'm going to send this to you.
Yeah, there you go. Keep it growing. Keep pushing it. Keep investing in yourself. That's the one thing I always ask, is never stop investing in yourself. And with that, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
Thanks for talking shop with ShopSabre.